We're live. What's going on, guys? First of all, I have to put this comment up here because it's the best. He says he watched episode 8 earlier and it was lit. I have to agree.
Thank you. Thank you.
So for those of you who don't know, and I don't know how you didn't know, I am here with some of the brilliant minds behind Netflix's Blood of Zeus, which watch and continue to watch so we can get a season 2, because I know everybody is I know I'm dying for a season 2, and I'm sure all of you guys are. So why don't you real quickly introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Charley Parlapanides, and my brother and I are the writers and creators of Blood of Zeus.
Vlas Parlapanides. Charley and I are yep, he just said it perfectly. Why would we?
And I'm Derek Phillips. I play Heron.
So we're so excited to have you here. And then Shaunt should be joining us hopefully in a little bit, the director. And I can just pop him in here when he's here. Oh, look. Winter Night says it's truly an amazing show.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Winter Night.
Which I have to agree. I think I told you guys reached out to me to check it out. And I was like, oh, yeah, cool. Greece. Yay. Because I'm Greek. And, part like 25%, but I still count it. And so I was like, yes, Greek mythology, here for it. And then I couldn't stop watching it. Like, it was so good. And I've watched it like 4 or 5 times now.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Just want to say that we're very appreciative, for everyone that's watching it and for all the fans out there. And, we're just very, very grateful that they've embraced it. It means a lot to us.
Yeah. I've been seeing a lot of positive stuff out there. So it's exciting.
It's a really cool response from everybody online, seeing everybody's reactions to it. And it's
people getting tattoos already.
I know.
People getting tattoos. I was like, I want one.
Not of you, Derek, of Seraphim, but
yeah. Well, because it looks
hey,
little
known, this is probably not public knowledge, but we were actually going to cast Derek as Seraphim. And I actually remember it was Thanksgiving of 2018, and we couldn't find a Heron. And Derek's audition for Seraphim was awesome. It was one of the few auditions where I was just like, wait, what number is this? Because we were just kind of like blindly listening. And he brought a genuine, and just knowing now Derek as a performer and knowing who it is now, he lives in the moment and he creates the reality of the moment. And his audition was gangster. He was so menacing. But part of it is we couldn't find a Heron. And we said, well, listen, Derek is strong enough of an actor. We think he could probably do it. And maybe then we slide someone else into Seraphim. And once Meredith, our casting director, sent us Elias's audition, we're like, great. He has a great voice to be Seraphim. Yeah. And we can just slide Derek over to Heron. So I remember
I remember too, like I had come in and I auditioned for you guys. So I had sent in a tape of Seraphim. You guys told me that you wanted me to read for Seraphim and Heron. And when I had my audition in the booth with Elias, I had read for Seraphim, and a couple other people had read for Heron. And then Elias came in and he read Seraphim, and I was like, dude, this is amazing. Like, I can't do what that guy's doing with his voice. And I was like, how awful is this going to be that, like, now I'm going to lose everything? Like, I thought I had Seraphim. And then at the end, it was like, well, now I'm not going to get cast in anything. And because he was so good as Seraphim. But it turned out kind of perfectly because I got to play Heron. He got to play Seraphim. And, I mean, I think you guys found the best guy for him, personally.
I think we got the best of both.
I'm not tooting my own horn here.
And literally, when they actually remember that now, when you and Elias read, I remember Brad Graber, who's the CEO of Powerhouse, he turned to us and said, these are the guys. He's like, there it is.
It felt that way to me, too, in the booth. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I hope that they don't have a better Heron in the ring because this feels really, really good, the read that we had together. So, yeah.
Did you guys record together a lot? Like,
no, I never actually, so the only time I met Elias in person was competing together, essentially, for the same job. So we've never actually, and then, with coronavirus and everything else, we've never actually met in person. We've, Zoom called, and we now are Twitter buddies. And so we DM each other occasionally when stuff's going on. And we've had a couple Zoom calls, but that's it. So I'd really like to have a season 2 so I can meet everybody.
Yeah, well, look at this. A crazy Amanda React says in season 2, we're going to send you into the future to take over the White House. It sounds like I don't know how that would They're in Greece, so it'd be kind of interesting. Why not, though? So Winter Knight has a question here. She says, with Greek mythology as a whole, between Theseus, Theseus, well, you guys can read it.
Theseus and the Minotaur, Hades, Persephone. Yeah. I part of it, I'll just say very quickly to this question.
Good question.
The seeds of Blood of Zeus are actually born out of this other idea that we pitched and didn't sell. And it was this idea to do almost an American Horror Story anthology show, but in the world of Greek mythology, where every season we would tell a different myth. And we would start with Icarus and Daedalus, their story, which is an amazing story, because people don't realize that, Icarus's father, Daedalus, he was like the Tony Stark of the ancient world. He was this incredible weapons inventor. And basically he was accused of murder in Athens and he had to flee to Crete. And if you really know that story, there are two other stories that intersected. Obviously, Theseus and the Minotaur, and then Hercules is the one that retrieves Icarus's body from the ocean after he falls. And so when we pitched our agent, he really liked the idea, but he said, "Listen, just be prepared to pitch what seasons 2, 3, and 4, just a few like two-liners." And when we were breaking down some of these other stories, Vlas and I said, "Well, you know what? If you were to take half of this story and half of this story, you could put them together. It'd be a really cool, interesting story." And that became the idea and the short story that eventually became Blood of Zeus. So we always say there's sometimes invisible steps to coming up with a story. I still believe in that idea. And I could see Derek in a toga, doing the live action, version. But
you would kill him.
I'm here for that.
And Derek, just to go back to it's such a pleasure when we heard your audition and when you're looking, for the right person and you just hear a voice and you just see an actor encapsulate a role, both roles in this case too. It was really something. So I give you a lot of credit, and maybe later we can get into your process because it was really. I think it elevated the material, and
I appreciate it. I mean, for me, I come from a theater background, so
we love that.
I've always believed that the actor's job is to service the material, and I think sometimes you have actors that are out there to service themselves in a role. And my objective and my goal, I think, as an actor, is to give the writer what it is they put down on paper. And sometimes you find stuff that maybe the writer didn't see, and that's when it gets fun, because I can only imagine. I'm not a writer, but I'm friends with plenty. And I can only imagine how nerve-wracking it must be to give this thing that you spent months, sometimes years creating, and hand it over to someone and then have them disrespect it or disrespect the materials. So and I think that happens a lot more with film and television than it does in the theater. The writer is God in the theater, and not so much in film and television. So I think that my objective is just to make sure that you guys are happy with and that we're telling the right story. So.
Tessa, it's interesting, it's a very different, every medium is different in our business. I know it all kind of falls under the umbrella of Hollywood, but Vlas and I always kind of tell people, especially when they ask us about writing in the feature world, in the movie business. And there's a very famous and highly successful writer, the writer who wrote Ghost and Deep Impact. And he said once, he goes, people don't realize that the writer isn't the low man on the totem pole. That's actually a misnomer. The writer in the feature business is the part of the wood that goes in the ground. And that's really kind of the truth of it. Like, we tell people, if you want to write movies, be prepared, because it's a very director-driven business, and it's something that you have to. And part of all writing, to be honest, is just taking good ideas and developing it and keep rewriting. Writing is rewriting. But in the feature business, you're there to serve the director.
And that.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and that's what was so pleasurable about working on this, that we were involved creatively the whole way through. As a writer in TV and in animation, you have that creative say, and we worked with our brilliant director, and it was such a pleasurable experience. And we love theater actors for many of the reasons that Derek had mentioned, because they really embody a role. They know how to do that hard work. They're not indicating it. Everything that's coming from them, most often the very good ones, is coming from a place of emotional truth. And we try to bring that level of authenticity that you see in a movie to the show. And, it was interesting because all the actors that we ended up choosing had that theater background. And that's why I feel that the performances are as strong as they are, because you guys brought that emotional truth, which is always paramount for us. And we just thank you for it. And Charlie and I were never too precious about like our words and don't change this. And, best idea wins, best piece of dialogue wins. We're all for that.
And why hire amazing actors if you don't listen to them? Like, they can have good insight, and because they're doing their homework, they're breaking down the character. And if sometimes they see things like, actors in our experience have such a high, incredible emotional IQ that you'd be crazy not to listen to them.
Derek Kimley's like, who wrote this garbage? Damn it.
That's funny. Andrew wants to know, Derek, what inspired you to get into voice acting?
As my career started to grow in film and television, I started to realize that there was limitations physically, just based on the way I look, to what I can do and what I can play. And I'd always been doing voices since I was a little kid, and I never really thought about getting into voice acting. But somewhere around like 30, I got a commercial agent, and they had said, would you be interested in doing voiceovers? And I wasn't really interested in doing commercials and stuff like that. But they said, there's a whole world of stuff that's out there, video games and TV cartoons. And especially, the world is changing. I mean, we've got plenty of adult cartoons now and adult anime. And so it was like this whole world opened up to me. And the first gig that I did a video game called Dishonored. And I played this character who on paper is very effete and real skinny and wiry. And it's something, he looked like Steve Buscemi in some respects. And I said, there's no way I would ever play this in a movie. But I think I could do something vocally with this, And so I kind of thought the character might start to talk. And you find something, and then all of a sudden it becomes this organic process where now it's everything, it's down to a movie. And the character talks like this. Everything he says is like blah, 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 You find this kind of thing, and it's like, this is fun, because I'll never get a chance to play something like this on film. And, even right now I'm doing something where I'm 44 years old, and Heron, I think, was probably around 18.
Yeah.
And I'm playing a guy in another thing right now. I can't talk much about it, but I'm playing a guy who's 22 years old. So it's really just opened up a whole new world of possibilities. So it's been really fun, and I'm just enjoying the ride. So.
Amanda wants to know, what are your plans for season 2? What gods and goddesses might we see? And apparently she wants a Medusa spinoff.
Listen, that part of it is we have so many ideas. Vlas and I are probably crazy. We overthink things and overplan things, and we have all kinds of what we would love to do in a dream world. The Medusa idea we have is something that we've been doing this professionally for 14 years. I think it's one of the best ideas we've ever had. And I can't wait, but part of it is we'll see what happens with that. And we're just very grateful that Netflix made the first season of this, and they have their process, and we hope we're afforded the chance to do a second season. And we have all kinds of plans for different gods and goddesses that we will see. There's 3 goddesses in particular that we'll really lean into if we're lucky enough to get a season 2. But again, that's out of our hands, and we just hope that enough people watch so that we're afforded that opportunity so we can jump into that.
I love Medusa, so I would love to see something with Medusa.
You would love this take if we were ever afforded that opportunity. It's really cool. It's a great character piece, and it's something that we think that people would really, really love. It has adventure, it has romance, it has all these things. But again, if we're afforded that opportunity.
So keep watching, everybody. Just watch it over and over and over.
I have a question for you guys real quick, and I'm going to record it. But my cousin just finished the first season, and he wants to know, honest to God, this is what he said. He goes, "You're doing an interview with the creators tonight?" I said, "Yeah." Tell him I swear, it's not coming from me. He said, "I want more nudity in season 2." I told him I would ask you guys, and I'm getting video evidence right now that I have. So
listen, there was a few more shots of it, and listen, Netflix was incredible. They let us do and make the show we wanted to make. But that is something that I think everyone's still just feeling out, like, because are we Game of Thrones or are we Lord of the Rings in tone? Like, are we really going, and so, we were able to get a little bit in. There was two other shots that we ended up trimming because when we all looked at it and sat down, Shaunt, ourselves, and the Netflix executives who were amazing, we said, you know what, like, we want, a 14-year-old kid to be able to watch this with their parents. And does it get weird, if you have too much of that? And so
it does. I've been that 14-year-old kid who's watched a regular. It's awful. It's a terrible experience. So I'll tell my cousin that he's just going to have to, watch something else.
It does make it awkward. I remember seeing the piano with my mom, and I'm like, oh, this is just awkward.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there are arguments for and against.
As I said, I'm 44 years old, and I still don't like seeing that kind of stuff with my mom.
Yeah.
No. For us too, we just don't want to compromise story, and we don't feel that we did compromise story. And so, as long as we're not doing that, we're fine wherever we land.
A lot of people.
That's like the cut of your question from here. He can ask you anything, and
I know. Sorry, guys.
I don't know what to ask. Sorry about it. It's great.
There are tons of Easter eggs. Some of them are directly related to Greek mythology. Some of them are tied to other relationships and dynamics that the characters have. Some of the things are just little tips of the hat. Like the two things that I will say, kind of capture the whole spectrum, is that like part of in 102 when Apollo shows up and he's the one that reveals to Electra that she's pregnant. We always liked in mythology, like where the oracle was, that's the temple of Apollo, and he always liked to bring messages to mortals. And so we said, that was literally like the reason why we chose to have Apollo be the one that kind of steps in there and helps his dad out. Just kind of a tip of the hat to that kind of little thread of Greek mythology. But then, this is a long process. It took us 2.5 years to make the show. Shaunt was a huge Cobra Kai fan. He just would always, he's like, have you guys watched it yet? Have you guys watched it yet? And I was like, dude, I'm not going to sign up for YouTube Red. Like,
Yes, I've had that conversation with people.
Yeah, but when we finally saw it, we loved it. But if you see at the end in 108, when Heron, Derek's character, and the rest of his crew, they come out, they're wearing black and gold. That is Shaunt's tip of the hat to Cobra Kai and the black and gold.
I didn't know that.
That's a good one.
There's all kinds of Easter eggs. And like I said, some of it is directly tied to mythology. Some of it is because people get crazy doing, staring at, the same images over and over again for 2.5 years, and you just slip in little things. So, yeah.
Ted wants to know if you got any of your first choices for voice acting, besides Derek, of course. He was, of course, the first choice.
We got everyone. We got everyone
That's
that
awesome.
we wanted. We had an amazing experience with regards to casting this. Meredith Lane did a fantastic job in bringing and rounding, all these talented actors, and it's just an amazing experience when you hear a voice and you're like, oh, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think, bro?
No, we got everyone we said, like, this is who we want, we were able to get, and it worked out great. Like, there was a couple people we weren't sure if it was going to work out, and they had some other, projects, and when we were recording wasn't going to sync up. And but thank God it all worked out. We got everyone. I mean, the gods smiled down on us for sure.
Absolutely.
And it's a great
experience. Hey,
there he is.
Hey, buddy. Hi, buddy. It's funny. I was doing a Netflix interview just now, and I thought this was at 8 o'clock, but it was 8 o'clock Eastern. So my apologies.
You're fine. Oh,
Sean, I feel bad. I stole some of your thunder. I told them the Easter egg about how you were always telling us about Cobra Kai and Cobra Kai and how you rock the black and gold for when they get their hero armor.
That's right.
Yeah.
And look, Amanda was very excited about it. She's my friend that's been telling me to constantly to watch it, and I haven't watched it yet. And she's like,
It's amazing. You're going to love it so much.
that's what I keep being told. I said, I will get to it. I will. Well, when it was on YouTube Red, I was like, I'm not. Like, what am I trying to watch this?
It's on Netflix now, though.
It is. That's true. Well, I was busy watching Blood of Zeus on Netflix.
Correct.
Oh, let's see. I know I saw another. Well, first of all, I have to put this comment up, but that's. Doughboy wants to know how long it takes to write a script.
That's a good question.
Vlas,
it varies. It varies. It really does vary. It depends if you're writing for these scripts, these are about 22 pages. So we did a pretty detailed outline. And then when the time came to write them, 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks, we could get like a first draft, but that doesn't mean that was the final episode.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes with a script, though, that's a totally different animal. That can take 2 months, 3 months to get a rough draft. So it depends on what we're writing and depends on the story, and also too, there's some stories that are more personal than others. So some of those stories we get to write a little bit faster because we're drawing upon our own experiences. Whereas there are other projects that we have to do research, physical research or the other research that we always talk about. Sid Field talks about it in screenplay. It's the research of like just thinking about a character and thinking about everything that happened in that character's life to the moment of when the story begins. And that's research too. So there isn't necessarily a universal answer that it always takes this amount of time for a teleplay or pilot, or it always takes this amount of time for a screenplay. They usually vary, but ballpark, I would say about 2 to 3 months for a script. And for these particular episodes, the 20 to 22 pages, took about 3 weeks.
Well, I will say we started in January and we finished in August writing the 8 episodes. Yeah. And then Shaunt got hired. And the whole time we were writing the episodes, we were asking Netflix, they're like, is it okay if this one's like 25 or 27 pages? Like, yeah, go ahead. Let your imagination run wild. And then Shaunt got hired. He's like, guys, we have 21.5 minutes budgeted for animation per episode. The scripts have to be 20 to 21 pages and no more than 7 pages of action in each episode. And we're like, oh, nobody told us. And we spent the next 6 weeks pulling out 30 pages from those first 8. And there's so many things that we lost that we love that we hope maybe we can, sneak in if we ever get a second season. And there are other gods and goddesses that were in those drafts. And there was, Alexia's backstory was in those drafts. And we just had to make cuts because we almost killed poor Shaunt and half his team, just trying to shoot what we had. Like if we would have had those extra 30 pages, he might have went out the window. You know what I mean? Like
Shaunt said what Derek said. What is this garbage?
Oh my gosh. Let's see. I saw a good one here. These are coming in so fast. Let's see. Are you able to say anything? I know you said you have a few goddesses you're thinking about in the future. Does this kind of have to be a vague answer?
There is a reason why they're all in the background there. A lot of things are being set up for a possible season 2. So every character, every storyline, everything, prop, something, even some of the very quick interactions between characters are all intentionally there to sort of hopefully get people to be interested in learning more about the characters. Ultimately, these guys wrote a story that's about, Zeus and Hera and Seraphim and Heron, and that's like the main story. But, this world is so big, like you could go down a million different roads, right? So I feel like we're just starting out. And so if we have the Watchers, there's a lot of fun stuff coming. In particular, Alexia's story. I just love Alexia's story.
Oh, see, I want to know that.
Yeah. But we tried to hint at it. We tried to give little hints at it. If you look really closely, Alexia has 2 swords. One of them's Amazonian, one of them's not. What is that other sword? You know, in 107, you see her in the Fields of the Dead, and her greatest fear is what we saw there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is that? Who are these people? What's the backstory of this? And why is she so emotional about it? Someone so strong being that emotional, that there's got to be something in there. So hopefully we put a lot of things out there that make people want to see more.
Yeah,
there's one shot of a goddess that's in there for a particular reason, but if we start to explain, people will be like, oh, maybe, you know, they're going to go down this road. So there are things that, I'll tell you, Shaunt was great at that. He's like, oh, I can bury this here. I can bury this here. And that hopefully then if we get to continue, God willing, they'll be like, oh, that's actually cool. That's why we saw this person in this episode. But, you know, we're very grateful.
Aaron's ever going to get that sword of Zeus again.
You know what? The sword,
Russian.
The sword is undoubtedly at the bottom of the ocean because Talos's blood melted through the bottom. And right now, Talos at the bottom of the ocean. Can Talos work without his blood? I don't know. Does the sword go in there? I don't know. Who knows? But it's fun.
One thing that I'm glad Shaunt mentioned, one of the biggest challenges on the writing front was that we only had 20 pages. So that means you only get to delve into so much with each character. And because we love all these characters, we're like, no, let's just put this one in, this one in. And now like sometimes we get a little penalized. Oh, they didn't fully flesh out this one or that one. You're constrained by the certain real estate that you have, and you do the best you can with what you have. And so that was probably, I would say for us, or for me, one of the biggest challenges, not to be able to spend more time. We want to spend more time and delve into those backstories.
Yeah. I was in a Facebook group this morning talking about it, and someone had brought that up, like, oh, there was some characters in the background that I wanted to know more about. I'm like, well, if there's a season 2, maybe you'll get to know more about them. And they're like, oh, yeah. I'm like, so watch it, and tell everybody. So.
Right. Yeah, we really, I mean, we felt it too. We were like, we want to do this, and we want to do this, and we have to have this in there. And, you know, we could have spent a whole episode in the Fields of the Dead. We could have spent a whole episode with Talos. That could have been a whole thing. You know, there's plenty of time we could have spent on Olympus, and then there's every god has a backstory, and every character has a backstory. I would love to just have Kofi, the Ethiopian, and Avios, the scoundrel. I just want an episode of these 2 guys.
Yeah.
Like on Olympus. Like, what are those guys doing on Olympus?
Right. Yes. Do you guys have a favorite twist or spoiler from the season?
You know, this is a question I have for Derek. Derek, did you know when you first read the scripts that you and Seraphim were going to be brothers? Like, did that ever, like, as you were going through them and breaking them down and preparing, did you see that coming?
He didn't read the scripts.
He just said,
he had his assistant read it. When
I'm pretty sure you guys told us that in the audition. So it wasn't a surprise. You spoiled it for me.
We did that.
That's one of the worst things about being an actor, though, is that you do get these things spoiled, and you don't get to have the same experience as an audience does sometimes.
That brings up a question, Derek. As an actor, would you prefer to be where your character is at that moment and not know certain things so that you're not acting, or do you want to know and build up to it?
Well, it depends, because sometimes I think you need to know where it ends in some respects, because you need to know what that arc is. I call it blowing your wad. You don't want to blow your wad too soon. You know, if I find out in episode 2, for instance, what's going on with that my dad is Zeus, you know what I mean? Okay, so how does that affect me? But then when I find out that Seraphim's my brother, you want those 2 things to be different, and you kind of want to paint those in a different light.
Right.
And so it helps to know that stuff in advance, I think, you know. But there's also the benefit of, you know, because I have worked on a series before on television, we did 5 years, and you didn't know from year to year what was going to happen, and you're sitting there going, oh wow, well if I would have known in season 5 that this was going to happen, I wouldn't have played this scene this way in season 1.
The writers didn't know either. Trust me.
Oh,
they didn't know.
Right.
Yeah. But that's also one of the joys of working on a series too, is that you go, okay, well, I'm going to take everything. It goes both ways. You know what I mean? Sometimes you want to know these things, and sometimes it's like, no, I'm just going to let it happen to me in the moment. There comes a point, I think, once you know your character well enough that you think, okay, well, my character would react this way in this moment. And it's not even a matter of thinking anymore. It's just, this character so well, you're just listening and reacting. It's not, so in some respects, it's more organic when you don't know those things,
Yeah.
I you kind of have to know,
I felt it interesting when we were in the booth that you were trying to measure out Heron's anger throughout the series, because he suffers from this anger, but we also needed to make him not hateable, and likable. I thought you really hit a really difficult little line there.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate that. But it comes from some experience of, having done a series before, as I said, for 5 years, and you go back and watch some stuff and you go, oh man, I wish I would have played that scene a little bit differently. Or I
would argue too that I think the experience, you're a little bit older. I know you're playing a 20 something, but that experience I think helps you kind of do what you were able to do. Because what Shaunt said, it's like you can come off as not likable if you go a little too much one way, and you just went the exact way where you were engaging, you were likable, and yet you still maintained this anger underneath the surface. And I think, could be wrong, that also could, comes about with experience, having, different experiences of crafting a character and knowing how to particularize something and keep it fresh and keep it all there. It's just.
I'll be honest with you. I had a great professor in college, a guy named Stan Denman, and he always used to talk about kiss or kill moments. And so when you're engaged with another actor, when you guys are up close like this, something's going to happen here. You're either going to kiss or you're going to kill. You're either in love or you're in hate. You know what I mean? If you get that close, something needs to happen. You can't get that close and then pull away. So those moments in a script are extremely important. You have to know, am I going all out? Or is this one of those moments where it's reserved? There's still anger there, but I can't go all the way because that's got to be reserved, I'm assuming, for the climax. And even if I don't know what the climax is at this point as an actor, I still know that there's something bigger coming.
Yeah.
That's just the structure. It's a very technical thing, but it's been very useful throughout my career because you don't want to overplay those moments.
I think
it's we've all seen this as viewers of television or film where it's like, oh my God, if I have to see this person cry in one more scene, or if I have to see this person it's repetitive. And what it does, unfortunately, is it takes away our interest as a viewer, and it takes away the power that actor has in that moment. If they're constantly screaming, it means nothing anymore. Mm-hmm. So if they finally lose it, then that means something.
That's so true. And we have Sean for like the too much crying. It's like, no more crying. Not.
You guys are being soft here. Yeah, no, like pull back a little bit. Sean's great like that.
This is great.
That's so poignant, though. I was watching a show today, 2 hours ago, that had a character that cried for too many times, and I literally was like, I'm kind of tired. And it's so funny. I never thought about it the way you just said it, but
yeah.
You just touched it.
I learned that actually. I was watching an episode of Cops back in the day. And this is really ridiculous, but I was watching an episode of Cops, and this woman's child had just died, and she was crying, and it was real. And if the objective of acting is to be realistic, she was real. And I'm not saying she was acting. What was happening to this woman was real in the moment. And it's awful of me to think this, but I'm an actor, so I'm always observing stuff. But she was crying, and her voice became grating to the ear. And she was going, my baby. And it was, after a while, I just sat there going, I can't listen to this anymore. So it's not enough to be real as an actor. You also have to be doing something that's interesting at the same time. Mm-hmm. We've all seen stuff that's real, but it's also grating, or it doesn't sound right, and I know it's awful to say that in this woman's disparaging, awful moment, but it's also, as an actor, that moment that you're trying to make it real, but you're also trying to incorporate this audience that's going to be watching this at some point in time.
I think you had a very wise professor, Derek, and it just made me think Coppola, who also comes from the theater, Francis Ford Coppola. He said directing and writing is all about knowing which moments to build to. And so when you're talking about like peaks, like you can't always be up and up and up, because then where's the arc? Where's the journey? Then the climax doesn't land because we've been hitting on the 10 out of the 1 out of 10 decibels, so spot on.
And I think Shaunt was very good at, okay, we're going to build moments here, and then we're going to milk these moments here. So you really, the directing is a huge part of it. And then there's so many things that he uses that sometimes people do or don't even recognize. Music, milking a certain moment.
Music is so important, and the music in this was amazing. Just helps build a moment, and so good.
I think everyone should be required at some point in time to watch a film or watch a television show or something dramatic without music, because you automatically go, this isn't working. This is not good. Mm-hmm. Every actor on the planet that's had to watch a rough cut of something is just slowly sinking down in the chair watching it. There's no music, because we don't realize. I think it's one of those. It's like the 12th man in any film. It really is such a massive part of film, and we don't realize it unless it's non-existent or it's bad.
Oddly enough, like so many movies and TV shows have just essentially background music now. It's just sort of repeat music that's just kind of taken from other music, and it's just kind of, hey, you could tell that this came from Star Wars, but like got 7 times in temp music to be what it is, and now there's this remnant, and it all just feels like whatever. And definitely with this show, we were like, no, the music has to have a voice. It has to be memorable. I want people to hear that music for 2 seconds and go, I know exactly what scene that's from, and I know exactly how that makes me feel, because that's how it is when we listen to, dum, 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 dum. It gives you an emotional something. So I feel like Paul Edward Francis, everybody.
Amazing.
He's
that's the composer. That's our composer. Yeah. Amazing.
So good.
He's great, but also I give you a lot of credit, Shaunt, because I don't want to spoil what scores you reference, but you have a vast, I would say, almost encyclopedic knowledge of music. You'd be like, oh yeah, it's from that movie in this moment. I'm like, what? Like, how'd you remember that? And when you have that kind of lingo, so one of my favorite, scores is when Hermes jumps. And I love that. I'm not going to reference what you reference, but you helped bring that about. Paul did an amazing job. We couldn't be more happy. But there was also, guidance from you. We're like, this is kind of what, I was thinking here or there. And then obviously we would tell you, it started with okay, this is kind of what we want to evoke from the audience. You'd be like, okay, I get it. And then you would then take it from there. And then, hey, I'm thinking this, I'm thinking that, I'm thinking that. And then Paul would then take it from there. And it's amazing how it evolves.
We have a great working relationship, Paul and I. We're just like this, we're in each other's heads. There's never any ego or anything. We'll be doing this till 7 a.m. sometimes. He'll be like, all right, I don't know, I'm tired, but this seems all right here. This bit over here, I think it needs something. I'm not sure what you think. And I'm like, I know what you need right here. And we'll just do that. And it's beautiful. And Vlas, I'll spoil it. The travel, I have a little fly in here. Apologies. The travel, Hermes traveling, I just had this thing where I want to traverse great distance. I want to make it feel like this is the first time we ever see Hermes on film running from the world to the underworld. This is something we've heard about, we've read about. What's it going to look like? What's it going to be like? And I thought, what's my favorite travel thing that gives me the sense? And in Superman, the movie, after Superman's ship comes out of Krypton and it starts traveling toward Earth, there's a particular John Williams theme. And I was just like, it's got to be something like that. So I actually played the Hermes run with that song. And I just played it for the bros. And I was like, what do you think? And they're like, God damn.
Blown away. Blown away. Blown away. Okay, you said it. And this is all to make you look good, Derek. So just remember it.
Yeah, seriously, I love it. I love it. But that's what's so fascinating about directors is you guys have to speak so many different languages. You've got to deal with, actors who are a nightmare in and of themselves. And then you're the middleman between the writers and all the technical aspects of the film. It's a crazy job that you guys.
We were blessed with a very, very, very good one and a brilliant one, and it's another one of our mother's prayers that's been answered. So
yeah. And there was something that you guys said earlier, and it's the second time that it's been brought up, and I've noticed this on pretty much every project that I've ever worked on that's been successful or has had a great audience response, and we brought up the idea of ego twice already in the conversation tonight. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, man, ego is the death of art. Anytime that I've worked on stuff that I've been like, I'm so excited for this, and then you start working on it, and you see these egos start popping up. And it automatically it kills the project.
You look at the most successful people. Look at Spielberg, and he always said, like, again, he's the one that came up with something that we try to do. Best idea wins, and so it's not about ego. And thank God it wasn't about ego on this show. And it was always that following that mantra: best idea wins. How can we make this better? And we talk about this all the time. Sometimes I think people become tyrannical because they're insecure. So they're insecure about their ideas. But I think if you have like a vision for what you want, then you're open to ideas and you're like, well, how can we make this better? How can, so it really helped the project.
And that comes from the top down. I mean, that's on you guys. You guys from day one made this a fun project to be a part of. And so kudos to you guys on that. Even the audition process, which can be a nightmare. I left it going, yeah, even if I don't get this. I
would say it was Shaunt too, because Shaunt brought that. And what Shaunt did that was just, besides being a brilliant director, he led by example. And, we work very hard, Charley and I, and he's the first guy we've come across who works harder than we do. And when people see that, when they see their director busting their butt, it raises everybody's game. And,
I remember you guys telling me about that before, that people were leaving. They're like, well, if he's still here, I should probably still be here.
That's a
true story. People left, but a few of them stayed. Marvin, especially. Marvin, he saw that and he came back. And on a side note, Marvin's mom makes the best sweet potato cake, and she just sent me one.
Ooh.
Was that Marvin's first show, Sean? Was that his first?
That was his first show in animation, and he's killing it now. Yeah,
he's so talented. He's a young kid from Atlanta, and he's just gonna keep flying high. I just really think he's awesome.
I see we have a question.
Sorry.
Yes. No, you guys are fine. Ted wants to know how important your heritage that pulled you into Greek mythology as opposed to other mythological stories.
Listen, we say this all the time. This isn't our story. This is the story of Greece. And, the kind of body of Greek mythology, it's just amazing, world and sandbox, and the stories are amazing. And so, of course, we grew up immersed in this. We come from a very Greek family. Our parents are immigrants. We, spent a lot of summers in Greece. There was a time where our family moved back to Greece. Vlas and our other siblings went to elementary school in Greece for a year. I was too young. I'm the youngest. And so being around it, hearing the stories, visiting places where some of these stories are set, I mean, if that doesn't, fill your soul with excitement, I don't know what does. So, I mean, I think there's a very direct connection between us being Greek and Greek American and spending time in Greece and hearing those stories from our mother and our Yaki Diakitsa and our grandmother Sophia. That's how you say grandmother in Greek. It made all the difference.
I would add too that, we were also, there's the experience of growing up being children of immigrants. When we grew up, we were working class, poor family. We had to work very hard. There were times where we felt ostracized. There were times, we always joke about, bringing the spanakopita to, lunch, and people are like, oh, that stinks. What is that? What are you doing? And you
good.
Kind of like you got on your forehead. And so when it came to write Heron, here's an outsider, here's someone that's ostracized. That was something that we could relate to. And we talk about this, we've talked about it before. I think that most people at some point in their life can feel ostracized or feel minimalized or feel like as if they don't quite fit in. So sharing that was important to us. So this was very personal. You know, I would say both with regards to the cultural component, hearing these stories at a very young age, they're the first stories that we ever heard, and also having the experience that we had growing up. And, you know, we also believe in being hungry and humble, try to be as humble as we can. I think that Charley and I have also grown, and as we've grown, we've become more and more humble. And I think
try to be more humble.
You know? We're work in progress. I'm a work in progress. I can't speak for him. I'm a work in progress.
No, our mom always says you have to watch out for the kripto egoismo, the hidden ego, because that can sneak up on you. And also too, though, these stories, you know, were told to us at a very young age, and that had an indelible impact on us. And I think for Shaunt, you know, you were telling us about your uncle, Shaunt. Like that's, I mean, would you say, you know, I don't know if you feel like sharing any of that stuff, but you know, it's important to people when you spend time with people and you share stories with people. It has an impact that you just, you know, you may never realize how far it ripples out through the decades.
It really motivates you. Growing up, my dad's best friend, he's not really an uncle, but he's basically like a better uncle than all our uncles. And his name is Vlas Kalugian, and he, when me and my brother were kids, he would come over every Saturday and he would show us these movies. He would show us Jason and the Argonauts and Ben-Hur and like everything, Clash of Titans, all that. He loved it. It was part of his childhood from where he was from in Lebanon. So him and my dad, me and my bro would sit and we would watch these movies. And you know, as I got the opportunity to work on this project and to make the project, I was like, he's going to be so happy to see this. He's going to love it because I'm putting all these little Easter eggs from all the stuff that we love in there. And unfortunately, he passed away a week before the show came out. So that's the shame. You know what? The show, on some level, for me, I don't think I would have been as excited to work on it or had any real connection to this material outside of having read a couple of books in high school. But it means a lot to me. So this whole show, in essence, is an homage from me to him.
Sure. And Nori says that they're taking a college class and they can see, you know, it's called The Gods, and that everything they're learning in class they see directly in the show. So that shows how good you guys did with it, but which we all know just from. But I just want more. That's what I want.
Thank you. Part of the fun of the show was, and we always thought, and Charley talks about this, and you can talk about it, you know, probably more eloquently than I can. But if you know your Greek mythology, you can kind of look at the show and like, oh, they stole this little bit here, and oh, this they maybe, you know, embellished or changed here. And that's part of the fun of watching the show.
And, you know, I would just say all of us are thinking of all those kids that are in college right now and virtual learning. Like, you know, my daughter's doing virtual school. Sean's son is doing it. And it's just like, I feel for them. And, you know, I hope this ends sooner rather than later. And then especially for people that are like pursuing the arts. Derek, could you even do like theatrical, like, you know?
I was literally having a conversation with a buddy of mine right now who's a professor at a university, a theater professor. And I was like, how are you doing anything like that? And he said, well, you know, it made sense after we had the conversation. He said, you know, it's like anything else. You're working in a different medium, and it's via Zoom, but the fundamentals remain the same. You know, but there's little hurdles to get over, you know. And this is not even a little hurdle. It's a big hurdle, you know. I feel for those kids that are in college right now that, you know, that aren't getting the opportunity to get on stage like I got to get on stage. I mean, that's awful, you know? So I'm just hoping and praying that this is over, you know, sooner rather than later, and all of us can get back to our lives. Because I miss it. I know everybody misses getting to be around their family and friends, and I haven't seen my grandmother in 9 months. And yeah, it's tough, you know? It's tough for everybody.
Yeah.
Well said.
This is a good one.
Yes, and Shaunt's the third brother, and now Derek's the fourth one.
So which one are you?
I'll tell you a funny story about the bros. We refer to them as the bros always. But the interesting thing about it is that they actually, for a while, they're like, no, bro. Like, no, bro. Like, they actually just bro each other. Just bro. No, bro. It's very funny.
Yeah, we did do that.
For a while, I thought it was just between you two. But then I realized you started broing me. And I was like, oh, this is a New Jersey thing.
Is it the one? I don't know who's who, but we have another brother between us, and he's the best brother of the three because we always say he's the George Bailey of our hometown. He's like, so I don't know who's Heron and who's Seraphim, but our brother Triandopoulos, he's George Bailey of our hometown at Seaside Park. I'll say that.
Terrible. So true.
Shaunt Doughboy wants to know, is it hard to do huge action battles?
Good question.
Yes. It is hard. You know what's funny is that we just wanted to unleash, finally. We had set up, we have Heron, who we have to like, oh, he's really strong, but he's not very skilled yet. If you notice in the first episode, he's got a knife in his hand and then he just gets kicked in the head. He's all anger and he doesn't have really the skill. The only thing he's really good at is that bow and arrow. He's always had a little bow and arrow skill with him. But we have to like grow these characters and we had to really watch out for the demons because they can't be as strong as Seraphim. But Seraphim can't be as strong as any of the gods. So we really made sure to stage Hera and Zeus. When they talk to him, they just like kneel, and they just, Zeus wouldn't even look at him. He would just turn around and not even face him and just stop to bite in. And, so we always had to track everybody's power level.
Mm-hmm. We also want ideas too.
Yeah, and we had to build up to that end episode. But finally, when we got there, we were like, all right, let's do this. So we were like, yes, everything. Like, throw it all out there. We want to see the giants. We gave them all really individual cool powers and abilities. We finally get to see the gods. One of my favorite moments in the whole script is this moment that the bros wrote where Poseidon and Zeus, who'd been kind of fighting each other for a good part of the series, they finally have their moment together. And there's just something about, as they know, as brothers, and I have a brother, Ed, who might be watching now. You fight with each other and you have these things, but there's always a secret code. You could just look at each other and start laughing, and there's just this thing. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we tried to build that with those two characters, and that moment was not only just badass, but it was just on a story level. But to answer the question, going off and doing really cool like moves is not necessarily the hard part. In episode 8, we actually boarded a lot more fight. It was a way bigger fight. And a lot of characters that you didn't get to see that much of, maybe some of the giants that could have done a little more. Well, they did. But as we were watching the episode, we found ourselves sort of going, you know what? We're like losing the Heron story here. We're losing the love story between Zeus and Hera. We need ultimately, and I think Vlas was the one who's like, we really need, we need the emotions to fill this out because that's what really the story's about, right? Our whole story, as much as we did set up all these giants and we want to see them, we could spend 3 episodes just in this battle. But the story had to really come down to Heron and Seraphim and this brother relationship and their relationship. We had to kind of tie up these loose ends. And so we originally had boarded it as we see this action fight, then we go to the Heron and Seraphim stuff and the Zeus and Hera stuff, but we realized that we had to like intercut it all to really make it pace out and sort of track everything that was going on, which was difficult because then we had to go, wait a minute, if Zeus blows up here, and Heron would see it. Where's Heron right now? He's flying. He's got to be like. We had to do all this like math and Tetris to make it work, but hopefully we got there.
I just want to say, Charley was big on honing it in on, keeping it on focus on Heron. We were also very big on the climax, and I'm very happy with the climax. The other thing, Derek was spending too much time at craft service, so we had to cut out his scene. And we're like, oh man, you just ruined this for us, Derek. But also, this is why Shaunt's a great director. When he talks about the brothers. Now, you can have action upon action, which he's great at, but it's those character moments, guys. It's those character moments that he recognized and crafted between the brothers. I feel that just elevate it, just make it a little more special. And
I was having a conversation with someone recently. We were talking about like what the greatest horror movie was of all time, and we started talking about The Exorcist. And the only reason The Exorcist works is because you care about these people. If you don't care about them, it doesn't matter what happens in the end.
Absolutely.
The first hour and a half of The Exorcist isn't a horror movie.
That's right.
It's us learning who these two people are, caring about these people, and then when awful stuff starts to happen to them, you're going, wait a minute, no. So you have to be invested in the characters, because if you're not invested, frankly, it's just a bunch of shit blowing up.
Right.
You know? As much as I love watching shit blow up, like you gotta be invested in the characters first. You know,
and the one thing that if Derek could speak to, because people think acting is exciting and glamorous, but when you do these big battles and you have people fighting, at the end of the recording sessions, they have to record what are called efforts. And I feel so bad every time I see the actors do it. Derek, do you want to explain, or Sean will explain?
Yeah, I'm going to post it on Twitter because I've actually got some video of me doing it and spit going everywhere. And it's not pretty. There's nothing glamorous about it. But yeah. And usually what happens, you do it on like a Friday, so you won't have any other voice work for the next 3 days, because it takes that long to recover from it, because the next 3 days you're going to be talking like this, because you're just screaming and grunting and for an hour,
And the direction's so specific by Shaunt. Because this is new to Charley and I. And we were like, again, another reason why we loved him. And he's like, try it like this. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, and you know what? We needed blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Because you're working in a vacuum. And
I just wish to God that all these directors would get together, though, because at this point, I've died in every game I've ever been involved in. I've done efforts for every single one of them. And it's like, can't you just – and I've died in a variety of different ways. I've fallen alive. I've fallen down. Oh, you can get that one. You can pull all this stuff from some other audio file if you guys just got together.
Yeah.
You'd be able to get all of it.
You don't have to do it anymore.
Face with Venom, we got it. I did it in Aliens Colonial Marines 10 years ago. Come on, man.
Well, Sean, you should tell them, though, he's a great actor. Sean's a great actor. He acted all the parts out, and he has to, because he has to stage things. You want to talk to him about that, Sean?
Because then he has to know what to ask for, too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he just talk about that, Sean. People don't realize, like, there's no set to show up to. You just got to create it.
As an actor, and then I'll let Sean get into it. But as an actor, you're walking in there, you're in a voiceover booth. 9 times out of 10, you're not with the other actor. You've read the script, but in some instances, in this, I did have access to the scripts, so I did read the scripts. Despite what Vlas says.
Sure, you did.
I read the scripts, man. I read my stuff. No. But anyway, 9 times out of 10, you're in a booth by yourself. You don't have the wardrobe. You don't have the other actors to play off of. You're not on the set. And so the director in those instances is painting the picture for you. Okay, what's going to happen now? You're going to climb on top of this magical beast that flies. You know what I mean? So you're flying through the air. And it's the first time he's ever flown through the air. So what would that be like? And then you take a pass at it. And he goes, he's not as much scared as he is mesmerized by it, or whatever that is. And so all that is happening, and I've never seen any of it. The only way I'm seeing it is through Shaunt describing it to me. So did I just describe everything?
Yeah.
He went away.
Bro.
He'll probably be back.
Yeah. Speaking of, well, now that he's gone, let's talk bad about him. Can we?
Right.
Come on.
His internet just went down.
Oh no! This is 2020.
Yeah, it's very funny. We actually have a list that I don't know if Derek was privy to this, but we had a list of 40 things on a piece of paper that was like laughing, crying, broken leg, falling from a couple of feet, falling from great distance, all that stuff. You just have to come up with every possible scenario of what you might need from every story, and then we just kind of let him go. And I mean, Derek was like sweaty coming out of that booth. He like took his shirt off. He was like pretty sweaty. And I remember Aid, who plays the Ethiopian, his whole head was just sweaty.
Oh, yeah.
There and everything, and like we had to get him a towel. It was pretty awesome.
I felt bad for like having them like put you through that. So like I would walk down and let Sean do it. Sean would do it. I don't want to have to tell you to do it all these different iterations and different versions.
I will say, like, as much as I love voice acting, that is my probably least favorite part of it, you know, is doing all the efforts. But it's essential to the project.
We needed it, you know. We actually really needed almost all of it.
Yeah. And that's something like people don't think about is that, like, okay, there's a scene where he's walking. Well, you've got to get footage of me breathing, you know?
Yeah. Right.
When you were running and shooting, you were telling Alexia, hey, you know, about the cave, you know, we had to redo that because it didn't feel like as if you were running. It was more conversational.
Yeah.
Right. And there's things like that you have to take into account, like distance. Like Derek doesn't know he's in the booth. I'm just like, no. She's about like 30 feet away. It's an echoey room. So you'd have to yell, but it's kind of echoey. So you don't have to yell that much.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. It can be really frustrating as an actor sometimes when you do a voiceover and you're like, well, why didn't they tell me that I was going to be 20 feet away? Because then you watch it and you see the characters like, hey, what's going on today?
You're right.
Yeah.
I would have played that totally differently if I would have known that we're at a party scene and I'm 20 feet away going, hey, what are you doing tonight? Because it totally changes. You know, I've always said that acting is like three things. You got to know the given circumstances. So part of the given circumstances is I need to know where I am and I need to know what my relationship with the person I'm in the scene with is. And I need to know what just happened before then. And a lot of times you're shooting stuff or you're recording stuff out of order. So it's imperative that you have a director that's on top of things and says, okay, now we're in episode 6. You and Seraphim, the last time you saw each other, this is what happened. You're like, oh, yeah, okay. So it sets the mood and it sets the tone for the whole entire scene. Okay, so you guys are on the edge of a precipice, you know, and you're screaming at each other. It's like, oh, okay. I need to know all that stuff as an actor if I'm going to be able to play the scene. And sometimes you don't have directors that tell you all that, and it affects the performance, and it can make you as an actor look bad.
Sean's available for your next audition, so.
You know what? We didn't really need it because Meredith, I think I said this in the last time we met, Meredith was like, you're going to pick Derek and you're going to pick Elias for Seraphim. She was like, I'm telling you right now. And we had, I don't know how many auditions we must have listened to. And she was like, I'm just telling you, you should just listen to me. She was right. We went through it. We all made lists and we were like, here's our favorites, you know, did the whole thing. And it was like, yeah, all right.
Yeah, what was the point?
Well, that's a huge compliment. I guess I owe Meredith some flowers.
Yeah.
She was a big advocate. She always said, oh no, Derek can do it all. You should get him.
Well,
Like, great.
Yeah, and it was also, it's like you guys are just so right together. We're so lucky because Seraphim's voice being harsh and your voice being so crystal clear, you have just like the right amount of youth, the right amount of like empathy, and the right amount of like anger and likability and all these things. And part of casting is you have to make sure. Well, you and Jason O'Mara can't sound too similar. You and Zeus have to be different. He's got to sound a certain way. And so it's how everybody measures up to each other. And Meredith is just like, she's like a savant with that. She just like knows exactly what to kind of stay away from and get
a whole nother skill set too. But it's so fun as an actor when you get to have those moments where, so like I got to work with Jason and I got to work with Mamie, and you get in the booth with each other on that. And that's always fun. Because now you're hearing that other actor and you're going, I've read the script. As I said, I read the script. And I have my interpretation of how it should play. And then you actually hear Jason, who's got that booming voice. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, this is cool. This is fun.
Yeah, cool. It's fun for us, too.
Ted is mentioning that you have some very strong female characters. And how important was it to give them the gravitas that they deserved?
You know, the one thing I will say to this is that, you know, there are definitely certain archetypes, both in Greek mythology and just in Greece in general. And we have the warrior, we have the mother, and we have the goddess. So between Alexia being the warrior, Electra being the mother, and then Hera obviously being the goddess, those are the three shades of kind of Greek women. We were raised by strong Greek women and grew up around strong Greek women, and were married to strong Greek women. So for that, that was definitely something, we wanted to make sure we got in there, and we wish we could have gotten even more of that in there, to be honest.
And what I would add to that too, and Claudia Christian did such a great job, because there's anger with Hera. She's dealing with anger, but she took it to a deeper level. She went to hurt. She's hurt by what happened. She's hurt what Zeus did, but she's still very, very strong. And in fact, we wrote her to be even stronger than Zeus. So I love that. On the one hand, she's vulnerable and we got her, but she's also very, very strong. And so that's important. And God willing, if we are given the season 2, we're going to explore a lot more with her. So.
She's my favorite character, I think. I love her so much. I was like, I get it. I mean, besides Hera, of course.
Female. She meant favorite female character.
Female character, exactly. No, I love her so much because, I get it. I would be so mad, but like you said, the hurt comes across too. You know what I mean? I don't know. She's just phenomenal. I love her. And some of her lines are fantastic. Yeah. She's got some good lines. You should have thought of that before you slept with that whore. I was like, yeah, that's probably what I would have said too. I'm just,
I love hearing what people think. What are some of your favorite lines and scenes? That's what I want to know.
Some of my favorite lines and scenes.
Yeah.
And you guys comment too and let us know some of yours. But like I said, Hera then she's amazing. But so much of it, I think I told you guys before, the eating of the giant, the actual where we see them eating the giant. I don't know. I loved that picture. Of course, the cliffhanger where you got Hades and anytime anyone was kneel, I was like, oh yeah, I like that.
Cool. That was a fun addition at the end.
It was so good. I was like, this is great. And then, of course, anything with Heron was just the best. So, no, but I loved his arc, right? From just being angry and lost to sort of finding his place, at the very end there. And the whole thing was so good.
I'll tell you my favorite Hera line was, "Did you ever love me?"
Oh, good.
Zeus doesn't flinch. He looks right at her. He's like, "Of course."
Yeah.
And she's like, "And her?" And she thought, and she looked up, "And her?" And he was like, and he looked, she's so smart. She caught him off guard.
Yeah.
She just got him in that moment.
Yes.
It was so nice. It was such a nicely written piece. And I just love that little part because it really shows her intelligence. And then you see her get mad and you see all this stuff going on. And then she'll just switch gears. We had a tell for her where she would touch her hair and that's her calming herself and you know what, this isn't working, I'm going to try this another way and I'm going to get you on this side. And if you really look at their body language, there's a moment where Zeus is looking away from her. He's sort of like, oh, here we go, she's going to start all this stuff, and he's looking away, and she was like, you were great once during the wars when you had a reason to be. And then he looks up at her. He's such an egotistical guy that it took that time for him to finally look at her. And then she just bashed him again.
Yeah.
And feels all, for all the hurt she gave him. But, if you had all of your husband who you love, his bastard children around, and you've been understanding, you let him cheat, you understand what he's about, you still love him anyway. But the last thing was that he fell in love with this woman.
Right. It was different than just having a kid. Right. He fell in love with her. Yeah.
If I really know too, I love that moment, and I love the way you directed that. But that little nuance to me makes a big difference.
You could listen to Claudia and Jason go back and forth for hours. They're so good. The both of them are so good.
But again, Shaunt's not working with actors. We're okay, let's inhabit the space, and you're gonna he thought of all these little moments. This is how this is This is the chess match. This is how it's unfolding. And this is how it's unfolding physically. You know, people don't realize that. Like, he came up with all that.
That's crazy.
Thanks, bro.
Good job.
The truth. bro.
Bro. A couple people have been commenting, bro. I was always laughing seeing that.
We do that a lot.
Fernanda says that they really liked the scene during the huge battle where you can see Dionysus in the corner spitting wine on a demon.
Gosh,
I
that you guys noticed that. Man, it was such a and I'm like, no one's gonna see this. Like,
That's awesome.
Gosh, we wanted to slow it down. We were like, oh, but we just had to cut time, and we were like, I was like, I want this God to have a moment. Thank you for seeing that. Bloody hell.
And you know, that was a save by Shaunt, because we had a little like sequence in episode 6 where we had 2 or 3 scenes with Dionysus, and there was just like little, but we had to cut it when we were cutting pages. But Shaunt's like, don't worry, guys, I'm gonna find a way to get him in there. And then that he like basically did like the wine spit. I was like, oh, this is great. So that people will know we haven't forgot about him. We know he's in the Pantheon. Yeah. And like sometimes you feel like, oh man, like we lost those 2 scenes with them and that was cool. But you know what? That might have even been better. Maybe that's even more memorable than if we had, you know.
Just spitting wine.
That's great.
Derek, what's your favorite scene? Just because we got Shaunt, I'm just curious.
I think the scene where I have to show up and Seraphim kills Elektra.
Oh, yeah.
But it's just heartbreaking, you know, because this is all he's had, you know.
You have a great yell at the end of that scene. I love that yell. I know those suck, those efforts, but that was a great yell when Elektra dies.
Thank you. But yeah, that's just it just rips my heart out thinking about that moment in that scene. Yeah.
We also designed, just a fun fact, we designed that scene and Seraphim's scene to be kind of mirrors of each other. So if you actually watch it close, you'll see that the position of his mom and the midwife are actually very much the same, and they both get stabbed down at the same time, in the same way. And it's kind of to show that you and Seraphim had very similar lives, but sort of differently.
Yeah. We just have chosen a different path.
And people that are hurt often repeat that hurt and repeat that trauma, you know, because, you know, for Vlas and I, we're always like, well, you know, like, you know, you want to have your 2 guys kind of meet up, but then how can we not it be the final kind of, why doesn't he just kill him there? You always, our other brothers, like, why doesn't he just shoot him in the head? Like, you don't know how many times we've watched movies, like, you just shoot him in the head, just finish it. But for us, it's that, no, he's experienced trauma like this. For Seraphim.
The George Bailey of your family said this?
Yes. We watched that Tom Cruise movie, Valkyrie, and he's like, this is the stupidest plan to kill Hitler. Just go up and shoot him in the head. What is he doing? Like, you know, but our brother has a heart of gold, but he also has that Greek blood in him that gets him all fired up, too.
But I love that Tom mentioned that, because this idea of mirroring, you know, those shots, consciously too, guys, I think that also helps create empathy, and you don't quite realize it. And again, that's a, you know, great director working in a way where you're like, why do I feel this way? And that's one of those subconscious things that's working. And then it's the music, and then it's these other little things that you don't even really kind of, you know, you don't realize that they're having an overall emotional effect. And at the end of the day, that's what we all want to do, guys. You have to evoke emotion. You have to be able to move people emotionally. Otherwise, why are we doing this? What's the point?
A lot of that is also strictly the little shout out for Elias, just playing that so well. I mean, we empathize with his character. We understand why he's doing the things that he's doing. We may not agree with the way that he's going about or what he's doing, but we know why. We know why he's angry. And we know why he's hurt. But it's also a testament to you guys once again, because it's in the script. It's in the script. I think a lot of actors would have a tendency to kind of fly past it. But hurt is that we want to jump right into anger. But what gets us angry is that we're hurt.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of actors want to jump over the hurt and jump right into the anger, because anger is kind of fun to play. But the hurt is what causes it, you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
I love how he's just like, join me or die. But like, it almost feels like, I think he wants that with his brother a little bit. It feels like, just come join me. Like, we can do that, but Heron's too much like good to do to be like, sure, I'll just eat a giant and be a demon. But I like that. So,
but Heron probably can empathize with him. He's angry. He doesn't care about it. He said it in the first episode. He's like, these people haven't done anything for me. Like, they like garbage. You could see him going down the same road.
Oh yeah.
But by as the episodes go by, he refuses the sword, and as a result, his mom is dead. And all of that maybe could have been avoided if he wasn't so angry and he didn't refuse that call to action. Sure. And that's why that scene's so important. And like, as time goes on, he just keeps seeing things go wrong because he just keeps going to this anger place.
That's right.
Everything's just getting messed up around him. So I feel like by the time episode 7 comes along, he has trained up in Olympus, and he's heard his dad, and they worked out some of this stuff that was locking him up. With, by the way, amazing performance by Derek in that scene with Zeus.
So good.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Good.
Love it.
And that was what unlocked him. And finally, he's like, you know what? I'm not 100% there yet, but I kind of think I know that you're going down the wrong road, and I'm trying to help you, dude. And Sarah,
It's also too, and thematically, we talked about this, anger, and we have 3 different characters where we explore anger. So with one, we see he's finally able to let his anger go, and he's able to overcome the adversity he's pitted against. Another one, her anger motivates her and makes her go too far, and then she's going to be forever changed. The third one, the anger destroys him. And so, those are the 3 kind of just interesting, thematically, this is what anger can do to people.
Yeah.
Ricardo wants to say congratulations on the show, but also wants to know, how did you want to differentiate the stories that you told?
The one thing is just, part of it is pure practical purposes. We're all working in this business. It's very much you go job to job. It's a gig economy, and we love these stories. But when you try and pitch the traditional stories, you see executives, their eyes
gloss over.
Should we finish his sentence for him?
Yeah.
You can finish it any way you want. Go for it.
Choose your own adventure.
Basically, I don't know if he's still frozen.
I don't know. Let me see if I remove him and bring him back in. No, now he's just a square.
Yeah, basically the executives have heard these stories many
times. Oh, there he is.
Yeah. But we lost you, Charley. So you have to, the executives' eyes would.
Oh, they would glaze over. They would glaze over. And part of it is that, like, I still believe you can tell these stories over and over again. As Vlas said, we always say that these stories are basically, they were the first superheroes, the Olympian gods. And like, you can reboot superhero stories over and over again. That's the language we speak in. And as Jason O'Mara said, we said they're the first superheroes, but it's also the first soap operas. So we think, there's so much stuff you can kind of dig into. But what we've found is that the only way we've been able to kind of push any of these ideas forward, like when we've tried to pitch the original stories, they don't go anywhere. But when you postulate it as a new story or a lost story, or you're somehow finding a fresh way in, then they seem to be willing to kind of roll the dice. So some of it is just out of pure necessity, just to be able to play in the sandbox.
Ted has a funny thing here. He asks, can we have Seraphim and Heron call each other bro?
I feel like we need to.
Yes, we'll try.
If we get a second season, I'll slip it in there.
Jersey, but you can't move the jersey out of you, right? That's right.
Speaking of spin-offs, this is Winter Night's suggestion.
We love, listen, there's so many offshoots. There's so many amazing characters and stories. Like, it's always, about the appetite of the audience and the appetite of the buyers. We could spend 10 years in this world, and Vlas and I would be thrilled. And we have so many stories. We've pitched a bunch of them to Netflix already. So believe me, they've heard it from us.
Yeah.
Ted has a good suggestion that might get you somewhere. The Real Housewives of Mount Olympus could be a good.
The soap is something that people are responding to, so I'm glad that we embraced it. And we can't talk. God willing, we're hoping there'll be a season 2. God willing, we're hoping there'll be spin-offs. Characters that we love. We love Apollo. We love Hermes. We love Medusa. We love so many of them. Like Charley said, we'll see what happens.
Let's see. I saw a question for Derek here from Ted. Here it is. How important is your reading partner when you're tracking voice?
Man, I personally love it when you've got the other actor in the room. They say acting is reacting. So when you've got a great actor across from you, I think it takes so much pressure off you. Mm-hmm. But by that same rationale, that's not always what you're going to have. So sometimes the best actor is you, because you'll play the scene in your head, and then but I'm limited in my scope, and we're all better with each other. So it always helps to have another actor there personally. But sometimes it's just not doable. So I'll play it in my head, or I'll have somebody read a line in for me. And even if they're not the greatest actor, just having that person read that line in, it sets the tone. As I said before, you got to know those given circumstances. You play your action and you react. I think those are the 3 fundamentals of acting. I got to know what happened before all this. I got to know where I am. And in every scene, just like in life, we all want something. So what do I want? Mm-hmm. And then from there, what's happening? And then I'm just taking everything in. How did that person say it? What was their tone? Because that's going to affect the way that I say my next line, But
that's interesting, because when I'm in the booth sometimes, and I know you had to deal with this, when I will read a line for an actor, I can't help it. I know the story, so I will act the line out a little bit. Mm-hmm. But I notice that a lot of voice directors will just say the line as flatly as they can, because they don't want to affect how you say your dialogue back to them. What's your preference?
I mean, it depends on who is reading it, but I would have no problem with you reading it, because you have an actor in you. You know what I mean? There are times where you get casting people, whether it's in an audition or actually in the booth, that maybe shouldn't try to act. Now you're sitting there as an actor and you're about to say your next line, and it's in anger with the person. That fucking you say your line, and that I don't want to be taken out of the scene with your performance either. Right. If it's so bad. I'm now going, what was that? Anyway.
Yeah.
But I know I never had that experience with you in this. It has happened in the past. Sometimes we'll have a PA. Do you want someone to read this scene with you? Because the other actor's not there, or they're getting in the middle of a massive costume change. It's yeah, that's fine. And you have that PA, and it's actually, no, I think I'm good on my own. Because they can take you out of the scene,
So now that people have heard your voice, Sean has pulled like a Hitchcock. So I'm curious if people can identify you with your voice.
Sean's voice is in the show in several places.
Oh,
really?
Yeah. And it's a really cool one where he has it. So I'm curious now if people will be like, oh.
Sean, do you want to reveal it, or do you want to see if people can guess it?
Or can we?
My son didn't get it. We watched it just the other day, and I was like,
your son didn't get it.
He was like, what? I'm like, huh.
Sean, whisper it to me.
Yeah. Do not think. Let's do this. Hermes.
He's the announcer in 103.
That's awesome. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. I got to go back and listen to it now.
Yeah. Or there's an old man oh no, this silly bastard can't be talking to us this way. Right. Voices that I use for Wallace, so they're in there.
That's great.
That's so fun. Bella wants to know, she says there's another goddess with pinkish hair that always seems to be with Artemis. Is it Aphrodite? And if so, are you planning, or can you not even tell us?
That's definitely Aphrodite. And we have a super cool storyline that we hope to get in with Artemis and Apollo, you know, her brother, and then some of the past, what's happened with Aphrodite is cool, and again, we just hope, fingers crossed, that we get to tell those stories as part of season 2, because of the things that have happened in season 1. We would see how that would affect them and what they're going to do. It's just a question of always, you know, fitting it all in.
Yeah, Aphrodite has some pretty amazing backstory. Just FYI.
Oh my gosh. See, you guys keep teasing me with all this stuff. We need more. People keep watching it.
Oh, thank you.
Winter Knight says the design of the characters were inspired and stunning. And which character is your favorite design?
Derek?
Sorry, guys, I was getting a text there.
I'll put the question back up for you. You are fine.
Yeah. Oh, Seraphim. I mean, yeah, Seraphim. He's really cool.
Yeah.
He's the cooler
Is there a
brother.
tinge of regret, Derek?
No, he's really cool. I mean, I knew that when I got Heron. I was like, yeah, Heron's cool, but Seraphim's really cool. You know, no one's getting a Heron tattoo right now, and I've seen some. This guy got a Seraphim tattoo.
I've seen him. Listen, I'm into tattoos. I have a ton of tattoos. They're hidden right now, but like I have a full sleeve of Guardians of the Galaxy. So nice. And I was like that. I saw that picture on Twitter, and I was like, now I kind of want one. Like, where can I put one? Because listen, he is cool looking, and he makes for a cool tattoo.
The character designs across the board are really cool. Like I was the kid growing up watching Clash of the Titans, and while I loved it, all the gods kind of looked the same. They weren't distinct, you know. And I think what's so cool about this show, and you know, it's feeding off that. And I know this came first, but it's feeding off the superhero world that we live in. Like each one of these guys has a special skill set. They all represent this one thing that they're great at or that they're known for. Mm-hmm. And so the characters, the designs in this were just so cool because every single one of them, it's like, yeah, that's Hermes, man, and you know, that's Aphrodite, or that's Zeus, or that's, you know, whoever. It was really cool for me to finally see it and be like, oh, they're all so distinct, and I love that, you know.
If I can add, we have to give a shout out to Katie Silva, who did those designs, and then again have to go back to Shaunt, because that attention to detail that he put in every single facet of the production, and character design was one of them. And to make certain that the characters are delineated, to make certain that they each have their characteristics, all of these things, it's just not by accident. It comes from the top. He said, this is what we're going to do. This is the mandate. This is important to us, and the details matter.
And I reached out to Katie because if we do get a second season, I mean, it gets cold up there and nothing but a toga with one nipple hanging out.
There are plenty of ladies who are like, the amount of times I have tried to look up Heron's toga. Group out.
That's hysterical.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your favorite character design?
Me? Well, I really like Poseidon. I think he's cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. I know it's going to be repetitive, but I really like Hera too. I just love her. And when she gets like mad in her eyes and like, she's so cool looking.
But Ares all cool, is badass too. Like Ares is badass. I like that he's got like the cropped military style. You know? Like they just basically, his hair was getting too long and he was in the field and was like, just took his sword to it, you know?
And it makes sense for him. Like everyone, you can tell who they are, which I like.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like exactly like you said, they look different and they embrace their own personalities, which I like. Yeah. I think that's cool.
We have someone on my crew, a girl who I will leave nameless, who was essential to our crew, who has dated a bunch of dudes that were like bad news. And at some point, I'm like, you see, this is the problem.
Yeah, right.
You're going for the bad boy all the time. You gotta get away. She's like, I don't know. He's angry. He's this. I'm like,
that's not a positive thing.
You know, he's a looker.
Yeah.
Charley, is this the person that paid you in nickels for the bet you guys made, Shaunt? Yeah. Without getting into the.
Right.
No, that's awesome.
Correct.
I love that you knew exactly who he was talking about. Ted wants to know if there's a season 2, Shaunt, if you'll appear in the background again.
Well, here's an interesting fact. A lot of people on our crew appear in the show.
Really?
Yeah, including the bro's lawyer who plays, gosh, what was his name?
The merchant.
Oh!
Is he the one that screws me over in the beginning?
Yeah.
I mean, the super uber talented Fred Tatasciore voices him, but and legally we can't say that it is modeled off of our lawyer.
Right.
But they do have a very striking resemblance. It just happened out of sheer coincidence. But yeah,
awesome.
we asked him, and he said, "Oh, I would love to be in the show." And I'm not saying that looks like him, but you know, everyone knows.
Cool.
Yeah, but many characters in the village and even a couple on Olympus are actually people on our Powerhouse group.
That's
Really?
awesome.
See, that's so cool. I love that.
Yeah.
And Winter Night, same as I said, Hera and Poseidon, but she also loves Hermes too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so hard to pick, I gotta say.
It is, because you start thinking about, like, I'm going through all the scenes and, like, I think of every person and I'm like, no, every person is real. Like, even Zeus as the old man is, like, really cool.
Yeah. Oh, and literally all the women on Twitter are like, oh my God, Apollo. We're all going crazy about Apollo.
Yeah, Apollo. Yeah, that's true.
So maybe I need to have less clothes in season 2. I don't know.
There you go. Well, guys, it's been an hour and a half. This has flown by.
Thank you.
I feel like we're wrapping up here, but thank you guys. Seriously, this was so fun, and fingers crossed for season 2, and then we can do this again for season 2.
Definitely. Thank you for having us.
Of course. Thank you guys so much. Is there anything you want to say before we go away?
I just want to thank Derek for joining us, because we had an amazing cast who just it brings it all to life.
Mm-hmm.
And Derek was amazing, and our whole cast was amazing. And then we had an amazing group of people that Shaunt spearheaded at Powerhouse. And the one thing I will say is that we just had an amazing group of people. Listen, there are far more important things in the world, and COVID has wreaked havoc over everyone. But I hope that because we weren't able to kind of have a kind of wrap party and everyone get together and just celebrate, I hope that, God willing, even if we don't get a season 2, when this is over, we are all going to get together and we're going to celebrate. Because I truly and genuinely love all the people that were involved in this show. It's a great group.
Totally agree. What I would add to that, totally agree. Just also thank the fans. Just thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, the fans, and for writing and for the love. We appreciate it, and we want to make you happy, and it just feels really good. And just thank you. Thank you for watching the show.
The feedback from everybody online has been really, really just amazing. So thank you guys so much for watching the show. Thank you for tuning in today, and I still say tune in. Does anyone say tune in anymore?
I do. And then when I say it, I would go, is that right? Or I say like record something or tape something. I'm like, tape something.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Well, everyone here is saying thank you too. And thank you guys all for coming and watching. And this was fun. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you for having us too. Thank you.